Somewhere in America tonight, a man is mopping a lobby floor at 11 p.m. that he also owns. 200 miles away, a woman is sitting across from an architect, arguing about whether the guest bathroom tiles should be Moroccan or Scandinavian, because the entire identity of her business depends on getting that decision right. 3 states over, a mid-level manager is filing a compliance report to a corporate hotel brand that controls every single decision he makes, from the color of the soap dispenser to the exact font on the breakfast menu. And sitting above all 3 of them, in an office that has never once smelled like a hotel hallway, is a portfolio manager who owns a piece of 400 hotels simultaneously and couldn't tell you the name of a single one. 4 types of hotel owner, 4 completely different businesses. One industry that generates over $250 billion a year in the United States alone, and almost none of it works the way most people assume. Here's the truth: the hotel industry never advertises. The person who loves hotels the most is almost never the person who profits from them the most, and understanding that gap, between passion and profit, between ownership and control, between one property and 400, is the entire story of how this business actually works. Let's go through all 4, starting with the one who is working the hardest right now. Type 1. The motel grinder. If you've driven any American highway, the kind that still has a Denny's and a bait shop and a gas station that hasn't updated its signage since 1987, you've passed a motel grinder's property without knowing it. This is the independent motel owner. One property, 30 to 80 rooms, no brand flag, no loyalty program, no corporate marketing budget, just a sign by the road, a booking page on a third-party site that takes a 15 to 20% commission on every reservation, and an owner who is probably also the front desk manager, the head of maintenance, and the person who personally tracked down the guest in room 14 to ask why they took the iron. Acquiring a small independent motel runs anywhere from $500,000 to $2.5 million, depending on location, age, and condition, a number that sounds accessible until you look at what's waiting inside the purchase price. Aging HVAC systems, roofing that needs replacement, plumbing that was last touched during a different presidency. The physical infrastructure of a small motel is a constant grinding capital expenditure that never fully stops. The revenue math at this level is honest but unforgiving. A 60-room motel running at 65% annual occupancy, which is roughly the national average for independent properties, at an average daily rate of $85 generates about $1.2 million in gross annual revenue. After operating costs, that typically leaves the owner with $150,000 to $280,000 in personal income. Solid, not spectacular, and earned through working hours that most salaried employees would refuse to accept. Here's what nobody tells you about the motel grinder, though. The business model that looks the weakest from the outside is often the most recession-resistant of the 4 types. When travel budgets collapse, during a financial crisis, during a pandemic, during a slow regional economy, the $85 a night independent motel doesn't lose its customer base. It gains one. The road tripper on a budget, the traveling contractor, the family driving cross-country who cannot afford a branded hotel but needs somewhere safe to sleep. These customers exist in every economic climate, and the motel grinder is the only one positioned to serve them at price points the other 3 types can't touch. The ceiling is real, the lifestyle is brutal, but the floor is more durable than it looks. Type 2. The boutique dreamer. The boutique dreamer started with a vision before they started with a business plan. Maybe it was a crumbling Victorian property in a mid-sized city that nobody had touched in 20 years. Maybe it was a converted warehouse in an arts district that they saw before the neighborhood became desirable. Maybe it was a farmhouse on 40 acres that felt like it deserved to be something more than a farmhouse. Whatever the specific property, the story almost always begins the same way. Someone saw potential where the numbers didn't yet support it. Boutique hotel development is one of the most capital-intensive small business categories in the United States. Converting and repositioning a 20 to 50-room independent property into a genuine boutique experience, with original design, curated amenities, a bar or restaurant component, and the kind of aesthetic identity that generates organic social media coverage, typically runs $1.5 million to $8 million, depending on the building's condition and the market. The business case, when it works, is genuinely compelling. Boutique hotels consistently outperform branded properties on one key metric: average daily rate. While a Marriott Courtyard in the same city might command $140 a night because the brand guarantees a predictable, reliable experience, a well-positioned boutique with strong design identity and a loyal following can charge $220 to $350 a night to guests who specifically don't want what the Courtyard offers. The guest paying $280 to stay in a 12-room hotel with exposed brick walls and a rooftop bar isn't comparing it to the Hampton Inn down the street. They're comparing it to the boutique hotel they stayed at in Copenhagen. That's a fundamentally different competitive position. The risk is that the entire business is built on taste. The boutique dreamer doesn't have a corporate brand to catch them if the design concept doesn't resonate, or the neighborhood doesn't develop the way they projected, or the restaurant component hemorrhages cash for 3 years before it finds an audience. Every decision is personal, every failure is visible, and there is no franchisor to call when the roof leaks during the busiest weekend of the year. The ones who get it right, the Ace Hotel in the early 2000s, the graduate hotels network built around university towns, built something the industry couldn't ignore and eventually couldn't afford not to acquire. The ones who get it wrong leave behind beautiful spaces that open as something else 6 months after they close. Type 3. The chain franchisee. Here is where the hotel business stops being about passion entirely and becomes a financial instrument with a bed in it. The chain franchisee has entered into a franchise agreement with a major hotel brand, Marriott, Hilton, IHG, Hyatt, and in exchange for that brand's name, loyalty program, booking infrastructure, and operational playbook, they have agreed to pay franchise fees that typically run 4 to 6% of gross room revenue, plus marketing contribution fees, plus technology fees, plus the cost of meeting every brand standard the franchisor mandates, down to the thread count of the sheets. A full-service branded hotel of 150 rooms in a secondary American market costs $15 to $30 million to develop from ground up. Add the franchise fees across a 10-year operating period, and the total cost of the brand relationship alone can represent millions of dollars paid to corporate for the right to use a name that the franchisee does not own and cannot keep if the relationship ends. So why does this model dominate American hospitality? Because it works at scale, and it eliminates the single greatest risk in the hotel business, the first-time guest problem. A traveler arriving in an unfamiliar city who books a Marriott doesn't know the owner's name, doesn't care about the specific property's history, and doesn't need to, because the brand has already made a set of promises the traveler trusts. The loyalty points in their account are the relationship, not the building. The chain franchisee is essentially paying Marriott to outsource their marketing and customer trust building to a global infrastructure that no individual owner could replicate independently. The financial profile of a well-run chain franchisee at scale, running 5 to 15 branded properties across a regional market, can reach $5 to $15 million in annual profit across the portfolio. This is the tier where hotel ownership stops being a business. Someone operates and becomes a business someone manages while their management teams operate it. The constraint is control. Every renovation requires brand approval. Every amenity decision passes through a corporate checklist. The franchisee owns the asset, but rents the identity. And when the brand decides to refresh its standards, the franchisee pays for the upgrade, whether the timing works for their balance sheet or not. Type 4. The REIT billionaire. And now we reach the level that owns the buildings that the franchisees operate under the brands that the boutique dreamers will never be acquired by. A real estate investment trust. A REIT is a publicly traded company that owns real estate assets and is legally required to distribute at least 90% of its taxable income to shareholders annually. Hotel REITs like Host Hotels and Resorts, Park Hotels and Resorts, and Pebblebrook Hotel Trust collectively own hundreds of branded and independent hotel properties valued in the billions, without operating a single one directly. Here's the REIT billionaire's model in its simplest form. Own the building, hire a management company to run it, collect the revenue, distribute most of it to shareholders, and use the public markets to raise capital for the next acquisition at a cost of capital that no individual owner could access. Host Hotels and Resorts, the largest hotel REIT in the United States, owns 78 properties as of 2024 with a total enterprise value exceeding $16 billion. The person at the top of that structure has never checked a guest in, has never approved a housekeeping schedule, has never personally handled a negative TripAdvisor review. What they have done is architect a capital structure that turns hotel real estate into a publicly tradable asset class, which is an entirely different skill set from anything the first 3 tiers require. The REIT structure also creates something the other 3 types will never have: liquidity. The motel grinder who wants to exit their business must find a buyer, negotiate a sale, and wait months for the transaction to close. The REIT investor who wants to exit sells shares on a public exchange at 9:31 a.m., and the transaction is complete by 9:32. This is not the hotel business, it is the finance business, wearing the hotel business as a costume. Profit scorecard. The motel grinder, recession-resistant, brutally demanding, real ceiling. Grade B for durability, Grade C for lifestyle. The boutique dreamer, highest upside per room, highest personal risk, entirely dependent on taste. Grade B+ when it works. Grade D when it doesn't. The chain franchisee, strongest risk-adjusted return at scale, lowest creative control. Grade A-. The REIT billionaire, structurally dominant, publicly accessible, zero operational involvement. Grade A. It was never really the same competition. 4 types of owner. 4 completely different answers to the same question. What does it actually mean to own a hotel? The motel grinder owns every problem personally. The boutique dreamer owns the vision. The chain franchisee owns the asset, but rents the identity. And the REIT billionaire owns the capital structure that makes all 3 of the others possible. The next time you check into a hotel, any hotel, you're standing inside one of these 4 stories. And now you know which one it is. Which type would you build? Drop it in the comments and subscribe to Cold Doc Explain, because next time we're breaking down another empire, one owner at a time.